Sananda Fru is going to be better than advertised.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Card Nation, what's going on, everyone? Welcome into this special Sunday evening edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. This is my fifth year covering the University of Louisville, third year hosting this show, and I want to take the time to personally thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, the show is free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week, your team every day. Now, this episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. On the show today, we're going to explain why incoming recruit Sananda Fru will be better than advertised for the Louisville Cardinals. The Nate Ament recruitment is finally over. He has made a decision. It is not Louisville. So we're going to recap that recruitment and talk about what needs to happen for Louisville moving forward to finalize this roster. And then to conclude the show, some football portal updates. The Cardinals got a wide receiver commit over the weekend. Also, a defensive end is slated to visit this week. So more on the football side coming up. But we start out on the basketball side. We have been talking about this incoming roster so much over the past month to month and a half as Louisville has gotten multiple commitments from the transfer portal. They've gotten an announcement of players coming back. But there are some players that sort of don't get talked about enough, whether it's players that are coming back that we're discussing how they need to develop further, or whether it's incoming freshmen. And we talk about Michael Brown Jr. a ton. And don't get me wrong, Sananda Fru gets recognized a good amount. But I believe that he's going to be better than advertised for the Louisville Cardinals next season. Sananda Fru, the German international player that plays for Louisville, I think it's Louisville Braunschweig is how you pronounce it. They play in the Basketball Bundesliga, which is arguably a top 5 league over in Europe, has had a great season with the team and will join Louisville at the conclusion of that year. But he got his updated ranking, which he's around the mid-20s. He is more a 5-star commitment than a 4-star, but it depends on which ranking you look at. But he's pretty much in that 22 to 26 range in the recruiting classes. And I think that he's going to play a larger impact than, I would say, half of the players in the rankings ahead of him, simply because he's not your typical college freshman. There are a couple reasons why I feel like he's going to be better than advertised. Number one, he's 21 years old. He's not your typical freshman. He's not going to be coming to your team and he's 18, 19 years old. He's 21. He will be 22 in August. So when he steps foot in that Cardinal red, he's going to be 22 years old. That's the first thing. The second thing is the level of competition in which he is playing on a night in, night out basis. When you cover high school recruiting in the United States, there are so many questions about, well, how good are the teams that this guy is playing? Is he going up against guys his size, guys his skill level? And sometimes you never have those answers. Well, with Fru, it's pretty straightforward. He plays in one of the top leagues over in Europe. If you need a little bit more justification, his teammate is former Kentucky standout Trey Mitchell. Trey Mitchell was one of the best players on his respective Kentucky team. So, arguably, Fru has had a more impressive season than the former Texas/Kentucky big man. Let's take a look at what Fru has done this year in 30 games of action. He's averaging about 25 minutes a night, averaging 12.8 points a game while shooting 67% from the field, 27% from three, and 76% from the free throw line. You add in 5.7 rebounds, 0.9 steals, and 1.4 blocks per game. And really impressive season for the 21-year-old. There was a stat out there posted by, I'm pulling this up, my apologies, Armand Jovic, PDT Scouting on Twitter. This was last week when he tweeted this. Louisville commit Sananda Fru has put together a very impressive last 10 games for Braunschweig. He's averaging 15.9 points, 8.7 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 1.8 blocks, 65% from the field, 40.3% on three on 2 attempts per game, and 73% from the free throw line. So Fru has been really impressive as we get closer and closer to the end of the season, and that leads me into the third and most notable point as to why I believe he's going to be better than advertised is that I feel like we're just scratching the surface of Fru is just scratching the surface of the type of player that he can be. I feel like his skill set is going to mesh really well with what Pat Kelsey is going to require him to do. He's going to play the 5 spot. Can he play the 4? I guess it really depends on who is on the court with him. It's positionless basketball. I think he could coexist in the front court with Case and Pryor if Pryor were to return. But could he play with James Scott on the court at the same time? Maybe. I think that Ali Khalifa would be a guy that he could play with because Khalifa is a shooter that can pass really well. But Fru, I would imagine, is going to man that 5 spot for the most part. 6'11". He has been rumored to be anywhere from 225 pounds to 255 pounds, which is a really, really large set of numbers there. It's a 30 pounds difference, and that does matter here. When you watch the film, it seems like he's more so in that 250 range than he is 230. And some people that I've talked to have sort of confirmed that line of thinking as well, is that he's probably in that 245 to 250 range, which bodes really well because he's got the college-ready frame. I think that the biggest obstacle that he's going to face, really 2 of them kind of serving as 1A, 1B. Number 1, the style of play. You're playing a completely polarizingly different game in America than you are Europe. I think that there are some aspects of Pat Kelsey's system that takes some inspiration from the European side of things, but the styles that you're going to be playing against are pretty drastically different. And then number 2 is just learning terminology, learning the playbook. Depending on when he comes to Louisville, he's going to have a couple months to be able to learn that terminology and the playbook. But the skill set, I feel like, is tailor-made for this system. For starters, at 6'11", close to 250 pounds, he's really agile, really athletic, and moves great for his size. Whether it is in transition, in pick and roll situations, defending the perimeter, you name it, I think that having that athleticism is needed for what his role is going to be. Most of his offense came from being a slasher, moving off ball, whether it's in the dunker spot or he is rolling off of screens. Most of his offense is by being a complementary piece. He's playing with a ton of motion and just slashing toward the basket and getting the basket on, using his athleticism and length and just power. He finishes really forcefully around the rim, which I think is what Louisville needs. You need that interior threat. Can James Scott be that as a junior? I think that's going to take some more developing on his part, but yeah, sure. I don't think Khalifa's more of an interior threat as he is a threat on the perimeter. So this is something that I like to see. And then you see the 3-point upside. I don't think he's going to be able to come to Louisville right away and be a guy that shoots mid-30s on 3 to 4 attempts. I think it's going to take some time. It might take a couple months of the season for him to be able to find his footing, but all Louisville really needs him to be is respectable. Knowing that you can make that shot is going to force defenses to not double the high post and actually have to guard you out on the perimeter. So whether it's him being a slasher, being in that dunker spot waiting for the basketball, being a roll man on the pick and rolls, or being the garbage man, rebounding on the offensive glass and being able to have put back dunks and give your team second chance opportunities. That's what matters. I think that the defensive upside is what excites me the most, because he's shown this season that he's completely switchable on the perimeter. At 6'11", even if a guy is athletic and can move well, you question how effective they are going to be in defending guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". And I'm not suggesting that he's just going to guard opposing teams' point guards. But if he gets switched onto a guard, I don't really worry about him getting blown by all the time. Like, I love the athleticism and I love the lateral quickness. He's switchable on defense to where, at the very least, guarding 3 through 5, averaging over a block per game. I know that rim protection is a major question mark for next year's team. If he is even serviceable in that category, we're talking about a great level of production. I think Sananda Fru is going to be 100% better than advertised. Well, what really is advertised? Well, you're talking about a guy ranked in the mid-20s as a freshman coming in. If he can play even a rotational role, it's probably a success. And I think Fru has the potential to be one of the top 5 centers in the ACC. And maybe might not seem like much, but I think that that's pretty solid for an international player that is, surprising everyone in his first season. So I'm really excited for what Sananda Fru will bring to the table for the Louisville Cardinals. Continuing on with the basketball talk, we're waiting to see what final pieces are put into place for this Louisville basketball roster. We got some clarification on Sunday evening when Nate Ament made his college choice. We'll break down what this means for Louisville when we come back on this special Sunday evening edition of the Locked On Louisville podcast. First, I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. That's Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. For trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use the promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's using supplyhouse.com. Card Nation, thanks again for making us your first listen of the day. Just a reminder, Locked On Louisville free and available on all streaming services 5 days a week. Your team every day, unless there are special circumstances. There won't be 5 episodes this week, probably about 3. I'm going to try to bring my recording equipment down to Texas with me, but I'm not sure how successful I'm going to be. But there will be a Sunday night edition of the show, Monday and Tuesday. So just a heads up on that. I wanted to get an episode out on Sunday because things are happening so quickly with the football portal, maybe with basketball news. When I saw this announcement come across my phone, I was like, yeah, we need to talk about this now. That announcement is the Nate Ament commitment. And the destination should not shock you. The only thing that should maybe, I wouldn't say confuse, but catch a little off guard is just the timeline, because everyone has been just sort of waiting for this news to drop. Nate Ament on Sunday announced his commitment to Rick Barnes and the Tennessee Volunteers. Sort of a head scratcher, in my opinion. I'm questioning how that skill set is going to work in Rick Barnes' system, but nonetheless, we wish the young man the best of luck, and hopefully he has a great year for the Volunteers, and hopefully he gets, everything he wants out of this decision. But I think for Louisville fans, everyone was just kind of ready for this recruitment to end. It had been drawn out over the past couple of months, and, he was taking his time making his decision. I mean, he has every right to do so, but I think every fan base involved was just kind of over the back and forth rumors of, oh, hey, this school is in front, or oh, hey, this school is in front. And I think by March 31st, everyone's like, thankfully, the commitment date is tomorrow. He ends up pushing it back with a TBD tag on it because we really didn't know when that announcement was coming, but it ends up coming 20 days later on April 20th, and he ends up going to Knoxville. So doesn't end up in the ACC. He will play Louisville early in the season of the 2025-26 campaign when Louisville completes the home and home with the Volunteers going down to Knoxville. I do, however, want to applaud Pat Kelsey and company for filling out pretty much the remainder of this roster while Louisville just waits for Nate Ament's commitment. One thing that you didn't want was for the Cardinals to get desperate and realize, well, we need some playmakers. We need some talent on this team, and maybe we have to make a Godfather offer that he can't turn down. Well, in the midst of Louisville waiting for Ament's commitment, they went out and got not one, not two, but three really good backcourt pieces. They went 3 for 3 on their top 3 portal targets. They got guys on campus. They closed on the deals, and they've been chilling for the past couple of weeks. Contrary to what opposing fans want to make you believe that they are trying to recruit other players that they are recruiting, Louisville's been chilling. They've got their backcourt figured out. They've got the 5-man figured out. The only thing that they're really waiting for here is what's going to happen at the power forward. Javon Hadley announcing his return gives you a little bit more insurance. It's pretty much expected at this point that Hadley's probably not going to be a starter, at least from my intuition, from what I'm gathering, but not going to be a starter. He's going to be a really quality depth piece off the bench that's probably going to be like your 6th man, but he's going to play a ton of minutes. We're all just kind of waiting for the case and prior news and sort of gauging the pulse of the fan base. And I put some discussions out there over the past month, and I've seen people run a Twitter poll. I discussed this on Mondays with Dalton Pence here on Big X Sports Radio that you can tune into tomorrow night from 6 to 7 p.m. I was like, okay, well, would you rather have Pryor or Ament? And I would say that probably 70 to 75% of Louisville fans, they wanted Case and Pryor back. And I think a lot of that was in the name of veteran experience, knowing this system, probably a better defender at this stage in his career than Nate Ament. There was more of a risk. Bringing Pryor in, I feel like, raised your floor, while bringing Ament in might have lowered the floor, but maybe raised the ceiling just a tad. But nonetheless, I felt like if Louisville were to land one of them, then you're in a good spot. Now I'm at the point to where you've addressed the backcourt so well. You've got really solid options at the 5. You've got Kenai Roots and Javon Hadley in the wings. I mean, all you have to do is get a difference maker at the 4. And for whatever reason, and I'm not saying this from a place that I know what's happening, this is just for the sake of hypotheticals because I like to play the hypothetical game. Like if for whatever reason Louisville misses out on Ament and Pryor were to transfer, I still think you've got plenty of time, plenty of opportunities, and plenty of top players at the 4 spot that you could say, hey, we've got this budget. Why don't you come in and be the final piece to this puzzle? So, I look at this Ament recruitment, and my first initial reaction was, well, I'm glad that that's over. And everyone has had they've had different opinions on this, but I've always been really transparent in suggesting that I don't feel like Louisville's the leader. Even when multiple people were saying, yes, like Louisville has made up a ton of ground. They're right there with Duke. It's like a 1A, 1B situation. Watch out for the Louisville Cardinals. And I'm like, yeah, sure, they're involved. And credit to Pat Kelsey for being right there. But, man, everything that I'm seeing and sort of reading between the lines here, and it just seems like Duke looks to be that spot. And then he delays his commitment date. And I'm like, okay. I don't think that he's going to come to Louisville at all. Like, I sort of shut that door mentally in terms of considering whether or not he's going to be a Louisville Cardinal. Like I was transparent when it happened, and I'm being transparent when I'm reflecting on this. As I felt like Louisville was always not in the driver's seat, but just sort of waiting their time. And hey, didn't work out. Ends up going to Tennessee, chose them over Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisville, and Duke. And hey, moving on, but it is what it is, truthfully. But to the football side, however, spring portal window continues till later this week. Louisville got their first commitment of the spring window in Dacari Collins, and another edge rusher will be visiting campus later on this week. We'll break it down when we come back on this episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. But first, I want to take the time to tell you about our friends over at Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, defensive stop moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without stressing last-minute ticket hunting. I am going to be in attendance for the Rockets-Warriors Game 2 game down in Houston on Wednesday, and Game Time is my place to go for the tickets because, well, with the last-minute deals, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. And the all-in pricing keeps me from being surprised. I don't get to see any random fees at checkout. What I see is what I pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and use the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Another reason why I decided to have a Sunday night episode is because the portal can get wild for football, and with it being a short window, I didn't want to be in a situation where I had to feel like I was playing catch up. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna stay proactive here, and I'm going to do what I can to just stay up to date. And Louisville got a commitment over the weekend from NC State wide receiver Dacari Collins, the 6'4", 212-pound native of Atlanta, Georgia. Spent the first couple of years of his college career at Clemson, had a pretty decent freshman year in 2021, transfers to NC State after 2 years in Clemson, and has decent seasons, 24 catches, 314 yards, and 2 touchdowns this past season with the Wolfpack. Now, he had to deal with some lackluster quarterback play that might have hurt his stats. He was a starter this past season for the Wolfpack. Let me read to you something that Grayson Boone sent me, my guy who is the co-host of Locked On Wolfpack, who has covered Dacari Collins. He had this to say, and I quote, "Long frame, great at high pointing the ball, average speed, good wide receiver in the red zone, decent wide receiver 3-4 option," which, end quote. This is what Louisville is looking for. They are looking for a wide receiver 3. They had a lack of depth, and even with JoJo Stone transferring, like outside of Chris Bell and Colin Lacey, it's about finding other players to step up. So at the very least, Louisville has an option now that they can put with Antonio Meeks, Jaden King, and Chris Hughes and say, you know what, go compete for this spot. And being 6'4", and being able to high point the football, I think it bodes well for the red zone and giving you some mismatches there. Let's continue with what Grayson said. Pretty underutilized in our 2 years with him, in parentheses, in my opinion. Had below average quarterback play and too many wide receivers in the rotation like KC Concepcion. Seemed like we never got a true feel for what he could do. But I will say he was getting surpassed this spring by some of our younger wide receivers, which triggered his jump into the portal. I think he could be a solid addition for y'all, though. Good extra weapon for Moss. And I think that understanding what Dacari Collins is being brought to Louisville to do allows you to keep reasonable expectations. And shout out to my guy, G. Boone, for giving us that expert analysis. But Louisville isn't looking for a guy that's going to post a 1,000-yard season next year. You've got those guys with Chris Bell and Colin Lacey. And not to mention, it's an offense that's going to run the ball a ton with Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. But having the ACC background, knowing the level of play that's required to be a constant player in this league is key. I'm going to read to you in 2023 and 24 what the third wide receiver recorded in the Louisville offense. Kevin Coleman was the third leading receiver in 2023. He had 26 catches, 362 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In 2024, it was Amari Huggins-Bruce who had 18 for 239 and no touchdowns. So I think Collins is going to be able to step in and play in a very receiver-friendly offense that, you know, a lot of the attention is on the running backs. It's on Bell. It's on Lacey. So he's going to have some good matchups, in my opinion. And he's got the experience and the talent to be what Louisville needs in that wide receiver room. So I'm seeing opposing fans say, well, Dacari Collins isn't really an all ACC type guy. Yeah, okay, that's fine. We don't need him to be. We need him to be a serviceable wide receiver 3 that can make plays, that can extend drives at 6'4" and having the ability to go up and get that football. Outside of Antonio Meeks, you kind of really don't have that. Maybe Chris Bell has that potential, but Meeks is the only jump ball receiver, if you will, on your roster. So giving yourself at the very least valuable depth in the wide receiver room, that's what matters. Some more portal news that we got over the weekend. New Mexico State defensive end Justin Beadles is going to be visiting Louisville at some point this week. I'm not sure what day that is, but the 6'5", 270-pound native of Tyrone, Georgia, had a career year this season for the Aggies. When I say career year, it's because he really hasn't played much in his career up to this point. Started out at Virginia Tech, didn't do anything there. Went to Houston, had 1 total tackle in 2 seasons in 2021 and 2022. Didn't play in 2023, and then for the Aggies had 20 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, and half of a sack in I'm looking at the game log here. It looks like 8 games of play. I feel like this is a situation where if Louisville believes in the skill set, they might just go add valuable depth, because you can't have too much depth, especially in the trenches. And this was a position that I kind of talked about and said, hey, maybe with some of the spots that Louisville has to fill, maybe they go to pass rusher or a guy on the edge to be able to just bring some more depth into the situation, because Woo Spencer ends up transferring at 6'5", 270. I don't know. I mean, maybe Beadles is a guy that they think maybe we could put him on the interior and see what he does. We saw what Louisville was able to do with Rene Conga this past year, Rutgers guy that didn't have much production to his college career. Maybe Beadles is a player that if someone goes down, Louisville can throw him in there and get some good production from him. But again, you have to be realistic with the additions that you could potentially be bringing in, because everyone plays a role. You're not always just going to bring in starters. There's only 22 starters at a time, offense, defense. But we're going to try to keep our ear to the ground on everything else. There will be an episode on Monday. There will be one on Tuesday. I don't know beyond that. If I get the feeling that there's going to be some significant news later in the week, I'm going to try to make it work and have a recording remote down in Texas. But again, that's sort of something that we're just kind of hurry up and wait. So we'll see. But that's going to wrap up this Sunday edition of the show. Everyone have a great day, great night, great Easter. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. Have a great week. Go Cards.